Brilliance Audio presents Murder in Venice by Maria Luisa Minarelli, translated by Lucinda Byatt, performed by Fred Stella.
It was poor young Tommaso Grassino, whom everyone called Masso, who literally stumbled into the first dead body. It had been a freezing night in early December, one of those Venetian nights when it feels as if icy droplets have risen from the canals by some process of sublimation, filling the calle with damp air and drenching the clothes of passers-by. It was still dark when Masso reluctantly dragged himself out of the warm bed in his parents' house behind Campo San Polo. Then, in the half-darkness, he walked down Ruga del Ravano and over the Rialto Bridge, hands deep in his pockets, as he headed towards the heart of the Cannaregio district, to the silk-weaving workshop in Calle Venier, where he worked as an apprentice. Hardly anyone was about, just the occasional baker on his way home from work, wrapped in a heavy cloak, and a couple of tipsy patricians who had spent the night gambling at the Casine dei Nobili in Campo San Barnaba, now drawing into sight just a little further ahead. He could hear the calls of the youngsters who worked in the drinking houses in taverns, sent ahead by the landlords to remove the shutters onto the street and light a blaze in the fireplace. They were waiting for the first vegetable sellers and fishermen, who would soon start to arrive and would come in to warm themselves with a nip of wine before they started work offloading the boats around the Rialto market. Masso hurried along the street, whistling a jaunty tune as he went, when perhaps, because of the biting cold, or maybe because he'd left the house too soon, he felt a sudden and urgent need to urinate. He swung right and headed into the maze of alleyways behind San Silvestro, ducked under a portico lit by the guttering flames of a candle end below a shrine to the Virgin, and took a few steps into the pitch darkness of a small courtyard. He had relieved himself quietly and gone back towards the street when his foot came into contact with something he couldn't readily identify. Someone must have left it lying there. He bent down to pick it up, curious to see what it was, and in the flickering candlelight from the shrine found himself staring at the wide-open eyes and protruding tongue of a face twisted into a grimace of terror. It was unquestionably the terror of death. "Aiuto!" Masso croaked. Then, more loudly and with growing fear, "Help! A man's dead! Someone, help!" His legs had turned to jelly, and he went on holding the lolling head in his hands and didn't even hear the rush of footsteps in the calle. Two hands grasped his shoulders and pinned him against the wall. A gravelly voice shouted, "What have you done, you scoundrel?" Another answered in shrill tones, "He's killed him!" A knot of people gathered in no time at all. The young men from the nearby taverns arrived, one of them carrying a lantern. The nosier ones bent down to look at the dead man. "The poor sod's been strangled," cried one. "The guards! Call the guards!" shouted a man's voice. He was tall and well-built, perhaps a porter from the market. All around now the inhabitants were wide awake. Shutters clattered overhead, candles were lit, women wrapped in shawls peered out of the windows. "Are you sure he's dead?" asked an old woman from above. "He strangled him," someone answered. "He's going to pay for this." In the midst of this uproar, Masso stuttered, his voice edged with terror. "But I didn't... It wasn't me. I found him." No one listened. He became increasingly frightened as he was manhandled by a group of youths who thought it was their job to hand him over to justice. Around the corpse, the crowd swelled as hastily dressed men and women crowded into the courtyard, and inquisitive passers-by in the calle were attracted by the shouting.